I'm Tom Osman, and this is Whatever Comes Next, the podcast where I explore the world of underground and independent music making. And on today's episode, I am talking with Marian Sarine, one half of electro-industrial punk duo DEAFKIDS, who are releasing their latest record, CICATRIZES do Futuro, on Neurot Recordings, or as it is translated, Scars of the Future. Describing the band's sound accurately is tricky, so just as well that I have Marianne here to do that much more effectively for me as we discuss the band, their sound, how they translate this on stage, various different influences, cultural dimensions, thematic aspects of the band, lots of different stuff, all DEAFKIDS related. And the album will be out this very Friday. You can get hold of it on vinyl, on CD, digitally as well. There are a couple of videos that are already out, including the very striking Cicatrizes, the second track of the album, which we do also talk about a bit. You can follow me at Tom Osman Sounds. You can go to my website, tomosmansounds.com, for my music. My music is on Ample and Bandcamp. And another thing to mention is that I now have a regular column with New Noise magazine covering some of the DIY underground music topics that I explore with guests on this podcast. So you can either find this in the print edition of New Noise magazine. There are 2 editions so far that have come out of the column. The first one is also on the website, and the second one is going to be on the website in a couple of days. And I am already preparing to interview my third subject in a couple of days for the next issue. So if you're interested in checking that out in writing, please go and do that. I will put a link into the description. Anyway, all of that said, Marian Sarine of DEAFKIDS, take it away. If I understand correctly, are from Volta Redonda, is that correct, in Rio de Janeiro?
Actually, no. Like the band comes from Volta Redonda because the band began as just like a project, like a solo thing by Douglas. So in the beginning, he recorded everything, he wrote everything, and we played like live. Like I wasn't part of like the first 8 months of the band, but from like since then I've been part of it, and up until like 2016, more or less, we actually up until 2014 we lived like that. So if we played, because he and the former bassist, they are from like neighboring towns in the countryside of the Rio. And so if we played Rio, I would go to them, or Rio and upwards, I would go to them. We would rehearse, and then we would do the concerts. And if it was like São Paulo downwards, the same, like they would come to me. But then in 2014, like after our first European tour, we moved together to São Paulo, and then it became a proper band, and it became like a process of um, of like unorthodoxizing ourselves in terms of like music and recovering influences from our childhoods, like you know, and psychedelic music all over the world and stuff.
Part of what I was wondering about Volta Redonda in particular, because I was reading that it has quite a significant industrial history in South America. So I think it had the first steel mills in South America, and it made me think of Birmingham in England with its industrial history and all of the heavy music that's come out of there, like Black Sabbath and Judas Priest and Napalm Death. So I was kind of wondering if that industrial environment and history had had an impact on your music.
I think it certainly does. Yeah, like I wouldn't say like it's fun because I wouldn't consider DEAFKIDS like a heavy band. I think it's more distorted than heavy in a way. Like it's way more like a D beat band, even though it like changed a lot, but in spirit. And in that sense, I think it's very connected to not only the industrial aspect of it, but I think like the countryside industrial aspect of it, you know, like the idea of like this kind of isolated place culturally that has this culture where uh, there's like this huge uh, company of sorts that everything in the city like revolves around, you know. So it's not only, and it has like the political significance because there's this steel mill is connected to uh, partnerships dating back to like the Second World War to the U.S. So there's like this political significance to it, and I think that it definitely has some connection to it, especially when you think about like the beginning of DEAFKIDS, which was more of a like a traditional D beat band in a way, but Douglas was very informed by Nine Inch Nails and Ministry and stuff like that, even though it was way more traditional.
Yep.
So it definitely has, I don't know, it has, it left an indelible mark on it in a way.
Yeah. No, that does make sense. From that point of view of sort of the non-industrial side, from the sort of traditional side, I interviewed Dave Lombardo a couple of years ago, I think it was, maybe it was 3 years ago, when he was putting out a solo album, Rites of Percussion, I think it's called. And
Mm-hmm.
so we were talking about different instrumentation, and it came up in conversation because I was asking him about his background with him being Cuban. And he mentioned how when he was in Slayer, he incorporated Cuban rhythms into Slayer music. So like the breakdown in Angel of
Mm-hmm.
Death, I think he said actually takes from a specific type of Cuban rhythm. And I was wondering with
Mm-hmm.
your music, what, how important are sort of, you know, tribal, local, ethnic, traditional,
Mm-hmm.
percussive forms in terms of what comes into the
Mm-hmm.
music? Because, you know, I can hear various instrumentation and I think to myself from the outside, like, oh, okay, there's going to be something that's kind of like particularly Brazilian, but I don't have enough knowledge to
Mm-hmm.
really know what it is that you're doing exactly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think with David Lombardo, you can hear it a lot in the way he creates films. I think a lot because that's the thing. I think if you think about Sepultura or uh, Slayer or Dave Lombardo's career, if you think about it, like they're pioneers, but at the same time they were part of uh, a scene on which like metal came first in a way. So they incorporated certain rhythms to the sounds that they were already creating, like connected to a scene, you know.
Yeah.
And I think that the way we create music, of course, it's part of like the dialectic process of I wouldn't say evolution, but like the natural process of how time goes on. You know, I think we are way more disconnected to genre itself, so that facilitates in a way like the way me and Douglas play percussion itself, not even like me playing bass in most of the songs of the album. Douglas plays bass in one of them. I play like a little bit of guitar in one. Like, but the approach to instruments on
Mm.
themselves, I think it comes from a certain rhythmic malice, a rhythmic uh, naughtiness that comes from being immersed in this types of rhythms, and that's why like I kind of dislike the tribal aspect, like the tribal
The term.
denomination,
Yeah.
because yeah, the term, because I tend to think that like when you think about tribal rhythms, you tend to think about like even if you're not thinking about the specific tribe, you're thinking about like I don't know a certain subsect of of um I don't know background.
Yeah.
And this of course there's many Brazilian per se rhythms. Like for example, the first song, I don't know, I imagine you listen to the record. Like
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
first song is very connected to a form of music here called boi, boi bumbá. There's many types of boi. But at the same time, the guitars are heavily influenced by Gnawa music from Morocco
Hmm.
and Malian music. Like Douglas has this distinctive Eastern way of playing, like the guitar or even the flutes. And me playing the bass in that song as well, like trying to create more Gambri inspired like bass line, so it wouldn't, we come from this background where in punk generally the bass is seen as like this guitar thickener,
Hmm.
like
Yeah. It's just basically underpinning what the guitar is doing.
exactly, you're just expanding the frequency, the range that a riff has. And and so like we feel very connected to Brazilian music, but at the same time we feel connected to a certain, I don't know, a certain approach to creating music. So, for example, me and him really like Indian music, Indian classical music, Hindustani, Carnatic. And for example, there's tablas in the second song, which is like this 5/4 song, like a more trippy, dubby thing, the third song, sorry. So I think that that's the coolest thing about creating music, knowing each other for so long and being involved in many types of music. For example, we had the experience to create some soundtracks as like our solo things, like Sarine and Yantra. So, like incorporating music that it's not necessarily meant to be that frantic or that um, infective,
Yeah.
So I think that that's the thing that really makes me happy, and I hope people dig that into this record. Of course, there are many, I don't know, heavy moments, like distorted. It's distorted throughout,
Yep.
but at the same time it's equal parts like electronic, but at the same time it's very organic. It has like this, for example, there are many rhythmic tricks that
Hmm.
reappear in the record, but decontextualized. So, for example, the snare from Reflexo, the second song that we released as a single, has its counterpart on a conga pattern that is like a type of clave. So the idea of being able to use um, have this sort of irreverence with it. Like
Mm.
you dominate that thing to a point where you don't need to pay homage to it. You don't
Yeah.
need to quote it. You
Yeah.
know, so you can rearrange, recontextualize. That's the thing that I think it's the nicest. So the the thing I mentioned about the boy overimposed with like um, more North African rhythms on the strings, and at the same time, boy owes a lot to migration that we had in Brazil, like the enslaving process and the cultural exchange
Yeah.
that had happened with a lot of people from North Africa specifically. So it's very nice to be able to rebuild certain bridges or to point to certain bridges being possible. You
Mm.
know, that it's really cool to see, to try to be part of a new canon of, I don't know, vanguard music that owes to forms of music that are being done more or less the same for more than 4,000 years in the case of like
Yeah.
Hindustani music. That is music based on improvisation. So it's based on new forms coming and new forms becoming the contemporary norm.
Mm.
But then 200 years in the future, you have other forms that are the norm. But since it's based on improvisation, you always have this gamey aspect to it, this gamified aspect of, it's not meant to be like compositions
Yeah.
that you have just to like A and B and it's clear what is the song. I would love to see someone cover a song from DEAFKIDS, because I would love to see what they consider the composition to be.
Yeah, exactly. Like what's kind of like the thread that they're holding on to.
Exactly.
I don't know how familiar, you just made me think of, I don't know how familiar you are with US Maple, but Skingraft Records band from the 90s, they
Mm-hmm.
do a cover of an AC/DC song. I don't remember which one it is, but like
Mm-hmm.
AC/DC, aside from, the guitar is obviously iconic, but I think they have a very, very familiar rhythm, with the bass and with the
Mm-hmm.
drums. And what US Maple do in this song is they manage to just completely avoid the drum rhythm and create something different. And I just thought like that was really impressive that they managed to find a thread that wasn't this very dominant beat.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it is very satisfying when artists can
Mm-hmm.
find something
But
unexpected.
the same with Devo's version of the Rolling Stones.
Yeah,
Like
that's
it's
another good example.
even the tempo of the song changed, like the measures. So it's really, it becomes this challenge of listening to something new that at the same time you're searching for the familiarity that it's there,
Yeah.
but at the same time you have to search for it. So it's kind of cool. Like that's the main focus with DEAFKIDS. It always was like the idea that what we do is in equal measure known and unknown to different people. What is known it depends on the type of background you come from. So if you come from the electronic scene, there are parts that are predictable or familiar, but there's always this other part that, whether it's the organic part or
Mm.
the arrangements,
Yep.
you don't know where it's going.
Yeah.
And at the same time, the same for the punkier audience or people that come from the metal scene, especially because of the associations that we have, like with Neurosis and Neurot. And I think that a lot of people tend to see us as this metal band more because of context rather than because of sound itself. I don't think we're
Yeah.
like a metal band per se.
Yep.
We are way more like this kind of frantic thing. But it's nice to know that we touch on so many things without being anything.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, the whole like, I said the word heavy before, which you pushed back on slightly, and I totally get that
Mm-hmm.
because I think, and also like with the word tribal, like it's very easy to accidentally use words that have particular associations that might not be intended. And I think
Mm-hmm.
the notion of heaviness is something that I find myself more and more interested in because as my interests in music develop or they just, they adapt and change in certain ways, I find
Mm-hmm.
myself getting more and more into things which are noisy rather than heavy necessarily. I like a
Mm-hmm.
lot of stuff that's metal, but a lot of the stuff I like is really noisy. And I forget
Mm-hmm.
who I was talking to about this. I think I was talking with I forgot shit, I've forgotten his name now, but the guy from Primitive Man. I don't know if you know them. They're like really,
Mm-hmm.
really slow, brutal crushing sludge metal band, Ethan.
Mm-hmm.
That was it, Ethan from Primitive Man.
Mm-hmm.
And I was talking with him about this notion of noise and asking him, like, what is it about noise that is kind of special or powerful? And he essentially was saying that it's kind of like the last frontier in terms of like where you can push things that I didn't even exactly say surprising, but it's like, you know, if you're having a race for heaviness, there's only so much you can do, and it can quite easily become cheesy. You know, like there's a lot of metal that's very cheesy, but there's something about noise which is just kind of like disruptive in a way that can really upset people. And there's something about that that I think is very interesting.
Mm-hmm. No, for sure. I think that's the thing with words, right? Like, for example, the term heavy itself, for example, you could associate heavy with like dense, for example. You could use heavy as way more of like a vibe, but at the same time, words have like this historic association with in certain scenes or in certain contexts. So that's really complicated. Like, how can we approach words in a way that like describes describe things with the exactitude that we want.
Yep.
You know, so or is it necessary to, you know?
Yeah.
But that's the challenge, and I think that's the thing with noise, for example. The idea that, for example, you could create noise that is extremely like bodily, extremely corporal, in the sense that like it invades you, but at the same time you can create noise that is like very rational, like very, here is my research.
Yeah.
Like that, it's very contemporary artsy in a way. Like it needs the explanation, it needs the context, you know? And I think we subscribe to this idea that there is a certain adornment aspect of music that separates like sound from music in a way. Like it doesn't necessarily need to entertain, but it needs to communicate to beyond a certain rational level. So that's where like noise meets rhythms and percussion and electronica, you know.
Yeah.
So for us, that's the main goal, you know, being able to create something that is like arid sometimes or harsh, but at the same time it's accessible in a certain way, you know. And that's the thing I really like about this record, you know, to a certain point. Like it's hard for someone to listen to it and not consider it music, even though it's very scary sometimes, or it's very trippy, or it's very, you know, very untraditional.
Yeah. Well, it's also very danceable in a way. Like it's propulsive.
That's the main idea, basically. Like if we think about the other, most of the other DEAFKIDS material, you have like 3 or 4 central songs, and you have like interludes, and you have a lot of connective tissue that tells a story. But now we really wanted to create like songs, like especially because a lot of we have this problem a lot, because we have like our own structures to know where, like, when a song is going to like be interrupted and then come back. So I think people get a little bit like intimidated by what we do, especially live, in the sense that like I think a lot of people have a hard time dancing to something they can't predict. So if you think the song will be interrupted at any point, so you're just like you're
hesitating,
you fear dancing wrong, you know. And we really want people to just like understand that for us, D beat was always a groove. Like even when we were like the D beatiest of the D beat bands, like the idea is that like this is bodily music, you know. So we hope that by connecting to these songs, people like get more in touch to the bodily aspect of DEAFKIDS, you know, like
Yeah.
the danceable aspect, like the trance that it causes, but trance of the body, not just like a trippiness, you know, like you're supposed to trip with your whole body, you know.
Yes. No, definitely. Well, I mean, well, if we take, let's see if I can pronounce this correctly, the sort of title track, CICATRIZES.
CICATRIZES, yeah.
Okay, I wasn't too bad. So, I mean, that's not exactly the title of the album, but it's like sort of a title track. That
Mm-hmm.
one is it is very trippy, but it's also hypnotic in a way that is very rhythmically driven. So it doesn't feel like the kind
Mm-hmm.
of thing that you would just necessarily lie back and absorb. It feels like something that you want to be a
Mm-hmm.
part of. And I think the video really adds to that as well, which obviously you've got all these different elements that are coming through it, and there's particular messaging.
Mm-hmm.
There are references to colonialism, and there's videos of explosions and bombs and warfare.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's Guantanamo Bay images there as well. So there's a lot going on
Mm-hmm.
there, which also does remind me a bit of that kind of classic Neurosis aesthetic with the really intense music and the intense visuals going on as well.
Mm-hmm.
And it was funny, kind of incidental, like you brought up Sepultura a little bit earlier. I was watching the video and I was thinking there's something about this in the spirit that really makes me think of Sepultura. And then there's a little
Mm-hmm.
frame, like maybe like 2 seconds, where there's Max
Oh,
Cavalera singing, and I was
Max,
like,
yeah.
aha. So
Yeah,
I
because
was,
the idea of this video is it's like we are trapped into like this collective delirium of sorts, like the necessity of being mediated by social media, for example. Especially as artists, we exist by by being on Instagram and stuff like that, for example.
yeah.
And at the same time, there's like the revenge by the end, where there is this uh, historic montage of a lot of figures that embody a certain unassuming resistance, you know, like creating and doing stuff from like, I don't know, bonga from Angola, a lot of Brazilian musicians, you know, but this idea of this uncompromising energy, you know.
Yeah.
So that's more or less the idea. And this song is because that's the cool thing from the pandemic, like right before like COVID hit, we were in the process, even with like Marcelo on the band, we were in the process of incorporating like electronic beats because before that we were a very traditional band of sorts, like bass, drum, and guitars. But then like I started playing like hand percussion, like congas, and having timbales on the drums, and we had like electronic beats, so we could like play on top of those. So this record is like the culmination of a process on which there are many templates that we can explore. So, for example, this song is purely electronic beats that we created and percussions play on top. And even when we play live, like there is the beat and there's like the free roaming electronic beats, percussive beats that I play on top, and sometimes those play guitar. You know, there's songs he's playing percussion. So that's like the crazy thing about being like that feels that we, even though we are playing on top of beat, like it becomes more organic because of that in a way, you know.
Yeah.
And it it's a very, we feel very like contemporary in a way, being able to express ourselves because when you get into like punk or any of like the 80s vanguards of sorts, there is like this idea, especially if you come from a third world country or a colonized country, a country that has musical heritage of its own.
Yeah.
There's this idea that your feelings can only be expressed through those instruments, like bass, guitar, drums. And that was like a click that we had in 2015, 2016, by the time of Configuração do Lamento, that there are certain things that we need to express that can't be expressed through this instrument, or when we play these instruments, we will express those realities through them. Like we won't play them in the same way that, I don't know, a person from the US will play them, you know, that doesn't have like this background, or a person from the UK or from continental Europe, you know, because there are this, we are many, but we are none in a way, you know? So that's the coolest thing about this record, being able to explore many, like even many timbres, like playing tabla, playing timbales, having like talking drums, you know, being able to explore the future, like the future of the future, like the electronic, the most electronic things, like the most electronic sounds there is, but at the same time sounds that point not to the primitive but to the primordial.
Yep.
To sounds that like are running contemporary with us for like 3,000 years or 2,000 years, or technologies of sound like claves, talas, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, indeed. Having touched on the electronic side and the programming, I'm wondering how you like, do you need to play to a grid? Do you play with a metronome? Do you somehow have the electronic parts like tied to the organic instruments that you're playing? Like, which way round does it go? Which one is leading the other?
We right now we are doing this thing where we have Douglas has a loop station, so we just have like the beats as mono. So we can, like, he has two outputs like L and R. So like the bass is hard R and the beat is hard L, for example. So he can send like the beat to the front and the bass straight to a bass amp. So we have a bass that feels more bassy, you know, even if like the bass is after that going to like the front of house, but still it's going through the amp. And I play because I have tinnitus, so I have to protect myself from the drums. So I have like in ears, but I don't listen to metronomes or whatever. I just hear to the same beat. I just hear the same beat that is going to the front of the house. So I'm listening to the song.
Yep.
But for example, right now we have access to an SPD, so it's easier. For example, it's not outside of the cards to have like the individual parts of the song chopped up, so we can have like play the A of the song until we want, and then I can signal, and then I like trigger B. So that's the craziest thing. Like we have this sort of like system where we inside of the beats there are like cheat codes, like stuff that signal for ourselves to begin like counting, for example.
Yeah.
Like something that happens. Yeah, no, something that happens like I don't know, reverb snare or something like that. That if you listen to it like through the naked ear, you would never like catch it as something like it's just an embellishment. But for us, it's like when this happens, we know that like in 8 counts, we will transition to something and stuff like that. So we already have like an internal logic that helps with that as well.
Yeah, okay. No, that does make sense. And I was wondering, you've sort of partly answered this question now, in terms of all the different elements that you have on record, how sort of specific is the way that you represent that on stage? Like how many kind of different options do you have instrumentally?
Oh, everything that is organic will be pulled out from the song so we can play it live, unless there's like, I don't know, I don't think there's examples of this happening on the record, maybe on songs that we are not playing yet, like because we are playing like 4 or 5 songs from the record already, but we will like create like the set for this record because we really want to play it like most of the songs, if not all. But for example, if there's like timbales and congas at the same time, we'll have to pick one of those because I like depending on the pattern, I can't play both of them at the same time. So, but basically, like guitars, Douglas pulls them out so he can play them live, unless it's a song where like he is playing percussion or something like that. So, we have these many options. We have, for example, songs that are based on the drums that have an underlying percussion line. Maybe we can leave the percussion line there. But mostly, like right now, most of the songs are played in this hybrid format where I have like my left hand on the congas and my right hand with like a stick so I can play the rest of the kit. There are many, for example, there's this song Possessão Coletiva, like the slower song of the record, like the techno-ish song. So it's just because that's a cool thing about the record that I really want to be able to even create content. Like I'm not very, very much of a content creator, but I really want to emphasize because I think it's nice for people to know most of the songs of this record, they are a steady drum pattern. Like the manipulation never changes, like the pattern I'm playing on the hands never changes. I just move it around,
Okay.
So, for example, there are this song, like the slow song. There's like a clave that the left hand plays, like ta ta tu 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 ta ta tu tu tu, and there's like this figure that goes around what the other song, the other hand is playing. So they're never playing at the same time. Like so I can just like move this hand around and have like this clave playing. So more or less they're like two people playing, and there's like a pattern on the bass drum, a pattern on the hi-hat. Most of the songs of the record follow this pattern. So it's very, very nice because in a way I feel like creating a language both to this record and like expanding the language that DEAFKIDS has, because there are many songs on the past of DEAFKIDS that are just like there is like this implied rhythm that I can just play freely on top, and in this case it's kind of like the opposite. There is like this steady thing that is never the same thing because it's always like moving around, but like where the hits land are always the same.
No, that's interesting. I'm going to have to go back and listen to it with that in mind now, get a different perspective.
Especially this song is very clear. Like, or Advertência, like the last song from the first side, like the fifth song, I think.
Yeah.
And at the same time, there are many pairs of songs. So this song has a drum pattern that is like relative to Feitiço. For example, like the bass drum and the hi-hat are the same, and there is a clave going on in the left hand, and the other hand is like playing around. So what changes is the clave. In one, it's like a rumba clave, like pa 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 pa, and in the other, it's on the congas, and it's like a 2-3 clave, like ta 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 ta, which is the clave of the snare of Reflexo.
Yeah, that's very cool. Yeah, Feitiço, I really like that one as well. Like there's like a back and forth that you've got going between the percussion and the guitars, which I think is really intense on that track.
And that song is very informed by Brazilian funk, like Brazilian contemporary electronic music, like 150 BPM or atabacada, bruxaria, the many types of contemporary electronic music from Brazil. So, and at the same time, it's nice to see that people will connect to it based on their musical upbringing. So a lot of people saw Aphex Twin on it or Breakcore, which is not a reference at all. Extreme maybe in a more underlying way. Like I really like the ambient works
Yeah.
more than like the breakcore-ish, proto breakcore-ish things. I like them, but it's not something I engage that much with. But at the same time, it's nice to see that like people are pulling different conclusions from it, you know. So that means that's the cool thing about like trying to create this sonic world, you know, rather than going towards approaching genres, you know. It's very that's why I said the thing about the cover, the like the version. I would really love to see someone try to approach one of those songs as a version, you know, like what is the song, you know, what is the is it in my opinion, of course the riffs are mandatory. Like most people would see like riffs as the composition,
Yep.
but at the same time, those songs are way more connected to their rhythm than to, for example, the thing you said with US Maple connecting to AC/DC. Uh, Even if you strip it off the rhythmic background it comes from, like the ba-da-da, ba-da-da, it has like this characteristic riffage
Yeah.
that points to it. And in the case of DEAFKIDS, like our riffage, is it so characteristic that it would, you know, tell this story? And at the same time, the riffage comes from a lot of patterns in Latin music. So it's very, I don't know, it's very trippy to imagine how people are going to react to this record. If they're going to be surprised, it's hard to tell, you know.
Yeah. You mentioned quite early on, I think you made a reference to the first time that you toured outside of Brazil. So I am curious to know how you got that break in the first place. How did you go from being in Brazil to getting international connections and touring abroad?
Mostly like the first three tours were based on, and that's the cool thing about like punk. Punk raises you in a way. So it was like a squad scene, contacts with friends, something that it was way more not an investment because the idea was not like that we are doing like this long-term investment, but way more of a like a I don't know, an adventure, something that like we were more worried about like recouping rather than like doing it as a like a band per se. Like it was way more about spreading the message in a way. So these three tours went along like this, and then we came out through Neurot, and that like we so like then Roadburn happened. We got the partnership with our booker in Europe, Swamp
with
Booking,
Swamp
that is
Booking,
helping
yeah.
us. Yeah, so it's helped. Ricky is helping us from a long time, and since then it became way more of this plan thing, like outright plan thing, like where we try to like raise the costs and you know like to have especially because coming from Latin America, we have this thing where we are, I don't know, sometimes 2,000 euros behind from the get-go
Okay.
because we have to pay to be there, you know.
Oh yeah.
So there's like this aspect, and then like renting gear and renting a van and like the whole process nowadays is way more solidified to a sense that are like we are still a DIY band, still doing what we want and what we like, but it's way more of a serious thing in the sense that we plan as work, as like the effort that we put into it. And at the same time, it's very nice to have like the context from the first tour. So we have friends in the Netherlands, but they are from all over Europe. So they are concentrated in the Netherlands. So they rent us gear in a symbolic price. You know, like there's like the partnerships that come from engaging in the thing, not trying to skip steps, you know.
Yep.
The fact that we did all this like groundwork and grassroots approach, that we had this grassroots approach, really helped in that sense, you know, really helped us to create the connections and the relationships to do this in the sanest way possible, you know. And it's really nice to look back and to see like we have like more than 200 gigs outside of our country, which for us, for a band coming from our background, is quite something, you know.
Yeah.
Especially when you consider that doing such a specific sound, creating a specific sound, really means that in Europe we are in the US, when we went there, we are very appreciated in the sense that people see that this could not come from there.
Yep.
You know, which is kind of harder here because of material conditions of the scene, or the scenes in Brazil, of course. But at the same time, it's kind of harder for people to realize the unicity of it, you know, uniqueness.
Uniqueness, yeah.
And in Europe, I think this is way more like not overstated, but stated or attached to us, you know. And like the pedigree that comes from Steve and the Neurosis guys, the Neurot guys, are really putting their names on what we do, you know, like this is something we feel that should be heard, you know. That means a lot to us, you know, especially because it comes from people that were not trying to grab the new thing, like to ride the new wave, you know. Like they just do what they want to do, you know. They've never done this for anyone or for very few people, you know. They're engaged with what they like, which is something, you know.
Yeah. Oh, Steve Von Till's amazing. He's a totally inspirational character. I interviewed him a little while ago, and I was quite intimidated in the beginning because it's like my image of his personality is like a very serious, very intense guy, but he was lovely. So that was a very nice experience to have. How did you end up being with Neurot? What was the kind of like introductory conversation? Like, did you reach out to them? Did they contact you?
No, there's this really fortunate connection. We, since like the, I don't know, 2014, something like that, we have, there's this website called Cult Nation. Sean is a very good friend. He supports the band for a long time. And then when we released Configuração do Lamento, in the beginning it was just a tape, and it was featured on like a list of like best albums in the year. And we were third and they were first, like the Neurosis guys were first. But we were featured like, this band sounds like no other, you know, the whole thing. And then Steve like saw it, and I said like, I call bullshit on that. Like, let's see it. And then he listened to it. He really liked it. We sent, Sean wrote us, he wants a tape. Could you send it? We sent it. And by sheer coincidence, there were plans by some people booking concerts in Brazil for them to come to Brazil. So they contacted us, said they wanted to like release us or something, and we said, "Oh, this record was not released on vinyl, so we arranged it to be released on vinyl." And at the same time, they were coming to Brazil, and by the end of the year, so they asked us to open to support them, you know. So they asked the organizers. And it created this crazy scenario where first the concert was announced. So a lot of people thought that because we are not very sludgy or very, you know, connected to this type of sound, a lot of people got kind of mad, thought that we had a hype thing going on, that we were connected to the organizers in some way. Started naming bands that had more connection to Neurosis that were supposed that should be.
Oh, right. So like they thought that it was like unfair that you had that opportunity, that someone else should have got it.
Yeah, like that it was something that was connected to our connections or something like that. And then before the concert, the record was announced and the partnership and the whole thing, and it became clear that it was something that they asked for. So it became like this more organic thing, both here and then after that we toured. We did 5 dates with them in Europe. We did 10 dates with them in the US, and the only US tour we did. They are like such a family, you know, like everyone that works with them, you know, and it's really crazy to be part of that, you know, and be cherished, you know, to see that they were actively excited to have us there, you know, with them.
Yeah.
So it definitely changed our lives, you know.
Yeah, it's funny. You're just making me think, you know, the way that you're talking about them, it reminds me that so much of the music that I feel passionate about is like unknown to 99.9% of the world. It's like, you know, like Today Is the Day, Neurosis, Jarbo, people like this that I'm like absolutely love them. To me, they're like my absolute heroes. But most people, if you say you'd spoken to them, they're like, who the hell is that? That means nothing to me. But it's like
Yeah,
for those people
and at
within
the same
that, it's
time they're
such an
big,
important community.
and at the same time they're in the know big. Like, you know, if you're
That is a good way to put
aware,
it. Yeah.
no, if you're aware, they're representative of something, not just like, especially with Neurosis because of the amount of time that they have been going through and the sonic changes, you know. I think that they have this imprimatur of, I don't know, of uncompromising of an uncompromising nature, you know,
Yep.
of
Definitely.
doing things on your own terms. So I think that being connected to this history is, I don't know, it's very heartwarming, very flattering for us.
Yeah, I can imagine. Talking about the release of the album then, so you've got some different physical editions that it's coming out on. Tell me how people can get hold of the album when it comes out. It's on the 29th that's coming out, is that right?
Yes, yes. People can get a hold of it through digital marketplaces, stores, like streaming services as well. But through Neurot, you can get it through vinyl and on CD. And we can't wait. We are going to Europe by the end of the year, and we hope to play a lot in Brazil as well. We have a date in Rio, the city, the week before, and the first concert after the record releases will be in Volta Redonda, which is quite like quite the merry-go-round to experience, and we'll have like a proper release concert in São Paulo, I think. But the idea, at the same time, there are as many things going on. We have like this ongoing partnership with Test. We have released the record by the end of the last year, so we are still in the process of doing like this big band thing, like 2 drums, you know, like this Megazord of sorts.
Yeah.
So
like when there was that like the Melvins Phantomas big band thing when they both came together.
in a way, yeah, in a way, it's hard to call it a big band because there are 2 duos. So in the end, it's like a band, you know.
Yeah.
But in terms of sheer volume and the amount of possibilities, it is a big band because I play percussion in songs that Barata's playing drums, and Douglas maybe is playing percussion or playing flutes or playing like just manipulating the delays or playing guitar or whatever, you know. So we still have this going on, which is nice. Probably by August we'll have some dates. And the idea is to reach onto places that we haven't played before this year. It's still like some places are being arranged, but if everything goes well, we'll go to places and maybe continents that we haven't gone before. So that's here's to hope.
Absolutely. So we've sort of touched on social media a little bit and content, and you know, I think I probably have a similar sort of outlook to you. I don't love the fact that places like Instagram prove to be so important, but I kind of grudgingly accept that they're a way to get information out there. In general, for people wanting to keep track of releases and shows that are coming up and any other news, where is the best place for people to go to?
You can go to Bandcamp, to the DEAFKIDS Bandcamp, because you can sometimes bands in town has like an updated list of shows there. But you, of course, the easiest place is to go to Instagram, like to our Instagram. We have our personal projects Instagram, like Douglas plays as Yantra. He also does a lot of DJing for Latin music on vinyl. I play by myself as Sarine. So there are many initiatives going on. So by following, I think the Instagram is by far like the easiest way, like the less involved way of getting like the fastest information on what we are up to. And the shittiest thing about it is that we are reliant upon rules that we don't even understand. So, for example, the general guidelines on this time frame is better for posting, tagging people is better, and then it all of a sudden they change stuff, and it's never announced. So it's people who work with that perceive that certain things are being disencouraged and certain things are being encouraged. So that's the suckiest part of it. We are dependent on a structure that doesn't even announce itself. You know, I think that's what sucks the most, especially in Brazil. For example, if you're putting out a concert by yourself, sometimes it doesn't reach people, even though you're being posting a lot, because flyers do not get engagement. So you have to like cheat it by having like, I don't know, a nice picture to, it kind of sucks. It sucks to depend on that much on it. But I believe unless we go back to physical spaces and newsletters, we so far will be dependent on it.
Yeah. I don't know what the answer is. I explore it with curiosity, and I try not to be too fatalistic about all of these things. And I like to think that things can be cyclical.
Yeah, I think that the newer generations, I kind of see it with the new like people who are younger in my family, like the tendency to either have like profiles where you have like pictures of yourself covering your face or no pictures at all, like to be, I don't know, aware of, because I think that we as like millennials or early Gen Z people, we tend to see we knew the world before all of that, but at the same time we are the most caught in this thread, like dependent on it. And of course there are many people like who are very reliant on TikTok and stuff like that, of course, like newer people, like younger people. But at the same time, I think that, for example, maybe a Luddite moment can come where people, for example, with the proliferation of AI, and the moment it gets like so good that a video will no longer be evidence of truth. So maybe that will make people kind of abandon the idea of truth coming from the internet, and maybe that can change something. It's hard to tell, but this record is about that, like the scars of the future, not only the scars to come, but the scars that the future, like the idea of the future in the present is creating, like the scar tissue that it creates.
Yeah. And on that note, I don't think I can say anything more profound than that. So, Marian, thank you so much for your time. It was great to chat with you, and I'm really enjoying the music as well. So I hope it gets a great reception when it comes out. I hope you get to visit all the places that you want to this year, and I hope I'll get a chance to see you guys playing when you come to Europe next.
Right on. Thanks for the opportunity, for this the platform. I'm sorry for the blabber. I am very talkative. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk. And
So good.
well, that's it. I hope people dig what we are up to, and if you can, hop aboard and dance with us. Like, come see us, and that's it.
Excellent. Thanks a lot. Until next time.
Thanks.